And we're live again.
All right.
Good to be back.
It is.
We're going to be talking about the 48 Laws of Power, Law 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
So, continuation from our last podcast. Let's start with number 3. Law number 3.
Okay. Sounds good.
And this is from the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene.
Yes.
Law number 3 is to hide your intentions. To have true power, you need to be able to leave people lost and uninformed. The easiest way to do this is by never showing your true intentions. They will never be able to prepare to go against you if you let them be lost. You can always give them wrong directions to maximize the effect of this law.
Wow.
So hide your intentions. How do you process that one?
Well, he's talking about wars, he's talking about also the political system. The political system is a tough business to be in, to be a politician, to say the least. And so a lot of people think that many politicians say one thing and they do another, which they do, So that's hiding their true intentions to obtain votes, They get... thrown that at them all the time. Also, when you're in a war, like the art of war, okay? I mean, you're not supposed to tell your enemy what you're going to do. So you definitely hide your intentions from your enemy.
Right.
Like the deception in World War II where, we wanted the Germans to think that we were going to land somewhere else, but not in Normandy. That was a deceptional tactic. So he's talking about war. You can apply it to business in the corporate structure, okay? If you are a manager and then you're gunning for this position higher up and then there's another manager gunning for that position too, there may be some strategies that you use to increase your sales or whatever. You're not going to go share that with the guy that's competing against you.
Right.
So
your secret sauce.
Your secret sauce.
Yeah.
You're just not going to do it,
Yeah. You might hide those things to position yourself in a better place.
Sure.
To maintain or gain power.
Right.
And that's what he's talking about here. He brings up a lot in warfare and in politics, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
And in business.
Yeah. Actually, many aspects of life.
Yeah.
But think about it. There's this young lady that you like, okay? And you want to be her boyfriend, okay? But there's another guy around the corner, too, that maybe wants to be her boyfriend, too. Then you're going to position yourself in a way where, you look better than the other guy. You're going to have some strategies. You're going to improve your dancing moves. You're going to take her out to the movies, whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not going to tell the other guy what you're doing, right? So it applies to everything in life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think if I've seen it in action, people concealing their intentions, right? People concealing their intentions. It's something that it's not honest, right? Because that's one thing about the 48 Laws of Power. It's about deception. It's a game, and you can use persuasion and manipulation and whatever it takes to maintain or gain power.
Okay, so it's a good point. It's not honest, you're saying, right? You just made the comment, it's not honest, okay? But it depends on what field you're playing in. I mean, if you're dealing with family, you want to be transparent with your family. There may be certain times where you don't need to be so open, but you want to be, for the most part, transparent with your family. So
Right.
It depends what field you're in. Is it really, truly dishonest? Because look, Robert Greene talks a lot about Hollywood and how Hollywood is brutal in the way they backstab people, okay? Politicians do the same thing.
Yeah.
Politicians are very, very deceptive, to gain your votes. And then once they're up there and they've gained the vote, then it's a free for all, maybe. I'm sure not all of them are like that, but most of them are like that. I've seen in movies how they do all kinds of things to gain the votes
Yeah.
and gain the power. So, in war, also, Napoleon wasn't going to let you know. Napoleon supposedly was a genius at warfare, okay? And the kind of stuff that I've read on Napoleon, one of the things that set Napoleon apart from many of the other generals is that he had this intuitive, this almost immediate appreciation of the war and the landscape. You got to realize when we were fighting, everybody walking up to each other, shooting each other. We weren't on airplanes and stuff like that. But he was a genius of being able to take in the information of the landscape and the number of troops. And he won many fights where he was outnumbered. Okay? And one of the key strategies was that he was always trying, as much as possible, to gain high ground. Okay? And the other thing that Napoleon did a lot was flanking the enemy. So,
What is that?
flanking the enemy is you lead your attack. Your top people are in the front. Let's say cavalry, but then or your infantry. And then once the troops came into full fighting, then he flanked them from the side. So essentially, he would encircle the enemy. And now you have to turn around to fight the guy that's coming from behind, from the side. The Romans did that also. The Romans were always trying to get high ground. It's easy for an arrow to go down with gravity, as a little harder for the arrow to go up, or a big lance or something. So
It's interesting you say about him wanting high ground, because I remember when I did the Camino de Santiago, there was a route through the Pyrenees Mountains called Route de Napoleon.
Oh yeah.
So it said that he marched up there, or his army marched up that hill,
Wow.
which was very steep.
And you did that, huh?
Yes, and
Oh,
I
wow.
believe that the Route de Napoleon was a lot more difficult than there was another route they had created that wasn't as steep, but we all ended up going through the very steep one, and it was difficult. I can't imagine them with all kinds of armor and swords, and it was very steep. But anyways, it's up the Pyrenees, so it's interesting that was one of his strategies. But yeah, you're right. In warfare, it makes sense, and in business, it makes sense.
It makes
You're
sense.
not gonna just be so open.
No.
Like, I remember going to some meetings where corporate they would get the number one sales producer, and they would put him on a stage, or they would call him and say, "Hey, how are you hitting these numbers?" Corporate would.
Yes, yes.
And then they want to put him on stage, and that person would reveal a lot of information, but I know that they weren't opening
For
all
everything.
their books. They weren't. The people that had the best reception were the ones that were opening a lot. But I'm sure there's still some things that they're keeping, because you're bettering in a certain way the competition, the enemy. Now, for corporate, it makes sense for the best guy to, or woman or man to teach the team. It makes sense. But it doesn't for that person who's the number one and wants to keep the number one. So there's a lot of dynamics, and I know in that case, and I remember getting some calls and stuff too, where they want you to share certain things, and how are you doing this, or with technology and blah blah, and you got to be careful what you share. And in one instance, I shared something that ended up being taken and repurposed and used, and I remember it didn't feel good, because that was an idea that I had come up with. So anyways,
Yeah. I remember that time.
yeah, that was, those were, you lose some sleep. I was losing some sleep at around that time.
That was your idea. And somebody else, yeah.
It was.
You have to be careful.
You have to be careful. So
You have a big mouth.
you have to be
Not
careful.
you particularly, but if you can't.
Well,
Yeah.
it actually wasn't me. It was a manager I was associated with that wanted to share it because it was an idea that worked really well in sales. But a system. So concealing your true intentions, for me it's a little conflicting, but I understand where it makes sense. The reason it's a little conflicting is because you want to be genuine, you want to be transparent with people. Um, that's one of the things in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He talks a lot about being genuine and be an honest, good person. And then you hear Robert Greene, which we also respect a lot,
Oh,
and the 48 Laws of Power, where
he's a genius.
but he's not saying this is how you should live your life. And I think that's one thing we can open with, and we maybe on the next, when we do Law 5 and 6, Robert Greene at the beginning of his book says, this book is going to change the way you see, I'm going to paraphrase it. It's going to change the way you see life moving forward. It's going to potentially, to a certain degree, twist or corrupt, or, you're going to look at the world differently now.
For sure.
Once you understand the laws of power and the games being played. So if you don't want to live a life like that, stop right here.
Don't read the book.
Don't read the book.
Actually, I remember reading that, and it kind of stumped me for a bit.
Yeah.
But I went
chose
on
to
to
read
read it.
So did I.
I don't know why this came into my mind right now, but, Christian, I remember going to one of his presentations, and he was explaining how he does all the house flipping that he does, all the flips that he does. And he made an excellent presentation. And then he took questions, and he answered all the questions. And I felt that he was truly genuine to the max. And he gave out, I honestly feel that everything that he had to give. There were a lot of questions asked, there were a lot of people there, and he just gave everything out.
He was open.
Completely. And I remember going up to him briefly, after the meeting, and I said, hey, I really think you gave everything you had. You gave us all. And he says, oh, yeah. And I said, does it scare you that you are arming your competition? And to his credit, he said, no, not at all. Less than 10% of the people here are going to use this or move on to this. Less than 5% of these folks are really going to take advantage of this information. And no, not at all. It doesn't bother me at all. He's so assured in his own right, and he's done so many, he's done them successfully, that he wasn't worried about, and he was really, really embarking on a teaching. He was really giving everybody a lot of substance.
Yeah.
That if you wanted to flip houses, you could take the information he gave and run with it.
It says a lot about him. I also think it's very strategic. He's a sharp guy, and I think he ended up, by giving such value, you form alliances.
Correct.
And so they eventually will come back to you.
Correct.
They can try to do it on their own, but it's different.
It's different because you need, as you well know, you need contacts, you need people.
For flipping, contractors,
crews,
roofers, everything.
Everything. But I don't know why that came to mind, but I thought I'd mention it.
Because you would think one would conceal some of their, their game plan, and you saw him very open.
I think it came to mind because you talked about corporate for the companies that you worked, bringing up their top producers.
Right, putting them on a stage.
Exactly.
So.
And then he came to mind. He gave an awesome presentation.
Yeah. And
I remember asking him briefly, and that was his answer. So, there's a lot to be said about that. However, when for example, I grew up in a communist country. You had to conceal absolutely.
Your true intention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there it is.
So we were planning. I mean, my parents, not we. My parents were planning to leave the island of Cuba I think for 10 years, okay? Even before I was born, no, let me take that back. As soon as I was born, my mom knew that she was going to get me out of the country. So shortly after I was born, and I left when I was 8 something. So they were not able to get out for 8 years, and they had planned it, but they didn't tell anybody, okay, until they presented the visa. They had to take care of certain things prior to, because the government was all over them constantly. And so that would have, they could not have done what they did if
Right.
they had presented for the visa right away.
They had to conceal their intentions.
They had to conceal their intentions. And you know what? It was like that for everything.
And there was a lot of secrecy
A
because of
lot.
it. And we were even talking the other day, Grandma was able to take out, your mom was able to take out a lot of her pictures, her albums, which unfortunately a lot of people who left Cuba or any country, when you're fleeing a country, you can't just bring everything with you. She was able to, through the post office and her friends. And so we have albums and albums of even from her childhood and
Right.
some of her father, and so that would be my great grandfather and things like that would have been lost. It would be lost. So the fact that she was able to get all that out had to be in secrecy though. And so that's a great point of having to conceal your intentions.
Yeah.
Because in that case, you'll be attacked. The other side is to gain power, and being strategic about it. It makes sense in certain
Of course.
instances, but it is a dangerous game to play because you're not being honest. You're not being genuine.
Correct. And one final point. Some people are a little bit superstitious about saying that they're going to do something prior to doing it. I have run across a lot of successful people that they could have potentially said something about it, but they didn't. They intentionally hid from their family and their friends the moves that they were making. And,
Yeah.
I admire people that can do that. The intentions are noble at the end of it, right? You hope. I admire people that have that organizational skill and that focus where, they can go on their own and accomplish what they need on their own without the need of talking to other people. Some people are a little superstitious about that kind of stuff. I have friends right now that I know that
They won't tell somebody they're going to do something until it's done.
correct. They're
mean-
afraid of some
Yeah.
bad vibes or, something like that, or they're very self-assured. They know I don't need to tell anybody this. This is my goal, my situation. This is what I do, and I
It's-
pick up from some of those people a lot of good pointers.
It's just how you want to handle your life and how you want to, but I respect that.
Yeah.
Plays into a little bit, and then we'll get into law number 4.
Okay.
That plays into a little bit. Can you hold a secret to a certain degree? Because hiding your intentions is holding a secret to a certain degree, right?
Correct.
To yourself. And Grandpa used to say, un secreto entre dos ya no es secreto.
That's
a secret
true.
between two people
It's no longer a
is no
secret.
longer a secret. So
Yeah, he would say that all the time.
that's one thing that there are some people that can hold secrets. But the reality is that a secret should be kept, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you really want to keep something to yourself, you can't say it
To anyone.
to anyone.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so
there you go.
law number 4,
Okay.
okay? Speak less than necessary.
For sure.
When you try to impress, the more you talk, the more common you seem, and the less in control you get. It is important that you be vacant and speak as little as possible. Those who speak little seem more powerful and intimidate people with their discretion. So law number 4, speak less than necessary. I mean, I can open with that one.
Go for it.
Um, there in the book he talks about the one king. I believe it was a king, but every time they would ask this person what his thoughts were, he would say, "We shall see," and that's it. And so no one knew what, it just, he stopped right there, and it's like, well, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna end up taking this action or not? And all he would do is say, "We shall see," and so he would just speak less than necessary. And I do see that there is a power to it. If you're there like blabbing, 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 talking, you don't look in control. In any setting, whether it's a salesman who's trying to sell something and just doesn't know when to shut up, and it's just over. He's,
That's annoying.
Yeah, when you sell something, when something's already sold and you keep talking about it, you're literally unselling it at that point.
It's annoying. It just happened to me last week. I went into a place to buy something, and the guy would not stop telling me all the benefits of it. And at one point, I told the guy, "Hey, listen, I'm sold. I'm buying it." And he kept on going. He just kept on going. I ended up buying the item, but it was annoying. He just didn't know when to stop. Where, in contrary, when I was being trained, I sold in my time, long time ago, I sold life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guy that was the top in the company sit with me. I remember I took him out to lunch, to get some of his tips. He was very good. I remember his name even to today. I have it. I'm not gonna, But his first name was Bill, okay? Anyway, I went out to lunch with him, and one of the things that he told me that I never forgot, is he said, you can sell a life insurance policy in the first 2 minutes, or maybe in the next 10, or maybe in the next 20, okay? And these are the points that you need to think about when the customer says this, that means they're ready to buy. You stop talking. And he said, when they say, okay, that sounds really good, or they'll say, if they say, I'll take it, you stop talking, you take out the contract, and you start saying, what is your home address, please? And that can happen in the first 60 seconds. And he would have no qualms, okay, about doing that in the first 60 seconds of the presentation. He had already talked to them most likely on the phone and given them some figures and stuff like that. But when he came to the house, that was it.
Yeah, it's understanding that.
When to stop talking.
Correct. And being in control. And so there are some people that have a challenge with that. And, but in terms of power and in terms of whether, in a business setting, or in a, like for example, I remember going to a meeting, and I remember the corporate, one gentleman who was a manager high up said, wow, you look super young.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
Put your hand down.
Oh, you look super young. And he was telling me that what he used to do, because he also looked very, very young, no facial hair, when he first started, he says, I put on a fake ring and I put on glasses to go sell insurance. And
you mean a wedding band?
A fake wedding band, but
Okay.
he wasn't married. And he was doing that to look more mature, and
Wow.
he had glasses. So anyways, these are the games that are played in real life. And this was a guy in the company that's, was high up. So it's a deception. It's the games that are played. And in sales, there's a lot of that. But but if we go back to the law number 4, which is speak
Less than
less
necessary.
than necessary. So he's not even saying speak what's necessary. He's saying speak even less than what is actually necessary. So you keep people in the dark to a certain degree. Again, they go hand in hand, right? 3 and 4. I mean,
Yeah.
conceal your true intentions and speak less than necessary. But there is a sense of power when somebody doesn't say a lot of words. It's like, what are they thinking? You know, what are they saying? What are they thinking when somebody's just... I was looking up for the person who said, "We shall see," and I apologize. I was trying to
No, you know the
Google
other thing.
it. I couldn't find it. Who actually said it?
It's extremely important to be careful. You know, not only the words you use, but the less you speak. It reminds me, I was reading a story about Mandela,
Hmm.
and
That's a great story.
Mandela would say, "Look, I think he said his father was a chieftain,
Mm-hmm.
and every time they got together to speak, they would sit in a round type of circular fashion at a round table, let's say. And Mandela's father, who was the chief, would be the last person to speak. And by the time things got around to him, he had heard every single opinion from every single person and had made his own opinion on how to proceed or whatever. And he had the benefit of hearing everybody out first, and then in 1 or 2 sentences, agree, disagree, or throw something out. And that was just brilliant.
That's a great story.
And Mandela said that he actually followed that. Can I have the pen? He followed that
To a T.
for the rest of his life.
Yeah, because he let everybody speak first. Then he was able to come in with his ideas.
Correct.
And that, yeah, when you're speaking less than necessary, you know what? There's some people that get nervous and speak more when you're not speaking a lot, right? So, like, for example, I mean, even, you know, whether it's on a podcast, or it could even be on a just a regular interaction with somebody. Some people, if you pause or you don't say too much, they get a little fumbled or nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Because they think that maybe, am I saying something wrong? Or they, you know, a lot of questions start going in their head.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'll tell you this, and this is not necessarily very nice, but I used to do this. There was this guy that we did business with a long time ago, and he kind of rubbed me the wrong way, you know, and I was there because I had to be because of another partner, blah, blah, blah. And but I would tell this guy, "I'm sorry, can you say that again?" And that would
Throw
him off and get him so nervous, you know?
Yeah.
And then he would rattle on, and I did that to him quite often, you know, because he kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I would say, I didn't understand that. Can you break that down for me? Can you?" And it was brutal, you know. Fortunately, you know, I didn't do that often. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would do that. So there are people that get nervous.
Yeah.
And rattle on and on and on and on, and they don't know when to stop.
Right.
They'll learn, you know. They'll learn eventually.
But
you
it
know.
is a sign. It does show weakness
Of course.
if you can't stop talking, or, you know. But when you're poised, confident, and speak less than necessary, I mean, Robert Greene hits the nail on the head.
Oh, yeah. He's a genius.
He nails it. Cool.
All right.
You want to wrap it up there?
Sounds good to me. Thank you very much.